Talking with famous people. Hi, host Eric here. Host Talking with Famous People. And I'm here with host Ken, Unify, Sarah, Hayden, Carolyn. We are talking in this video about decision making and the complicated equation that is decision making. So one thing that I get frustrated with a lot as an ENTP is I will have somebody come to me expressing some sort of problem or difficulty or complaint, and I'll provide them what I believe to be is a perfectly viable solution, and they will either play yeah but that's not going to work because blah blah blah, and they're not really looking for a solution, they're looking to complain about a problem, or they will feel as though the solution sometimes is too bold. No, Eric, you're just going to piss them off. Okay, well, what you're going to do is half-ass your way to failure. Now, either fucking go in there and handle it or not. Or they're going to say, any number of other things that reject my obvious truth. But the problem is, of course, is obvious truth to me because I'm not attached to the values that they're attached to, and it's that attachment that's constructed the current status quo. So my ex-wife, for example, I could never get her to make what I consider to be sensible, easy improvements to her web architecture for her business because she couldn't let go of anything. I'd say, Candace, just give me something to do to help you a little bit, and let it be my domain. Let me do it my way. Didn't want to let go of any control. And I don't want to work to execute somebody else's vision. So it made it impossible for us to work together. I mean, I wanted to help her with her business, but I don't want to help her with her business by doing what she tells me to do, doing what she needs me to do for her, which is the TI stuff, because she's got TI in the fourth slot, Moving of other people towards perceived positive outcomes is a challenging matter because, number one, the third party can, in fact, often see more clearly than the first party elements that the first party ought to change in order to better attain some sort of project outcome. And then, second, the third party also doesn't understand why the status quo is as it is as a construction of existing value priorities within the individual engaged in the problem, so to speak. So it makes this whole issue of advice giving and directing others very challenging. Since most people tend to be moved less effectively when moved directly, a lot of people try to move other people indirectly. This is typically known as manipulation. So a classic but very clumsy example of manipulation occurred in the book Tom Sawyer, where one of the two boys convinces the other children to paint the fence by tricking them into thinking it's something fun and desirable to do, prompting the others to act for reasons that the others believe are acting for reason A, but actually they're acting for reason B, but only the person executing behavior C, namely the person provoking this change in behavior, can see that by provoking A, they cause B, and therefore it's manipulative. So that's the issue with moving people around. You've got a couple of possible angles, one of which is direct, transparent, but maybe not the most effective. Another might be more manipulative, might be more effective, might not. And then the last thing to factor in is this conundrum of a combination of greater objectivity, less intimate detail to understand the various complicating factors. That's my initial thoughts on that. Anybody want to chime in on this issue of encouraging others to go this way or that way or anything like that?
So when you say move, do you consider it, or do you look at it as like controlling people, or do you look at it as like guiding people?
Well, I mean, it depends on how they're positioned in relation to me. So, if we look at Saren's example here, Saren's given a couple pieces of advice to me about talking with famous people, and I would suspect probably gets somewhat frustrated at my apparent unwillingness to evaluate it on its merits and behave accordingly, right? So there's a certain reasonable expectation that a person might have, it might seem reasonable anyway, that if I give you good advice about something that makes good sense, and you're not responding to it by saying, actually, that advice doesn't apply to me, that then that advice, ideally, is preferable to the status quo, and you ought to try to follow it to the extent that you're able to. But that doesn't necessarily play out that way. So even if I think something is good advice, it's good advice given a certain stack of values. And it may or may not be good advice given a different stack of values that might be more related to reality. For me, whether it's valued or whether it's a natural deficiency, whether it's just indulgence or whatever you want to call it, I know that I'm likely to be informed by all of this stuff. It's likely to inform my thinking in the sense that it's going to influence it and cause me to be more X or more Y or more Z, but that it's never going to be a direct link, right? So it's like I might get a piece of advice, even if I want to follow it, I'm not even going to attempt to, because I know that it requires a certain amount of follow through, or that it's just not part of my existing regimen. Now, it doesn't mean I don't necessarily want it to become part of my regimen, and that will happen if it is in fact the case, but it'll happen gradually as per my metaphysical comfort with it. Because, obviously change is disruptive to systems, not just to the element being changed, but to all the systems that are dependent upon that element. So there's certain cost implicit to making systemic changes or even changes of paradigm if a project is complex enough. Thoughts,
Yeah,
anybody?
exactly. Yeah, exactly what I was saying, because it's not as if, I mean, the advice is only considered, right? It's only evaluated. It's not followed. You know what I mean?
I mean, it might be, but the thing is, it's not followed directly. It's not like, well, for example, like Zach
It's only like a
said,
piece of the puzzle.
right? Zach said, oh, we should really try to do more of these GoToMeetings. In the end, that one sentence or two had a lot of weight, but the way it had weight was I persisted a little while longer in my existing course of trying to get more one-on-ones, struggled with it, had a lot of pull from other people that I now recognized it for what it was more because I had been forced to address this issue of group size directly because I was being told what seemed intuitively wrong to me, which was large group, longer videos, which at the time was a wise course of action. I mean, those things are always in flux for me. It's not just what's the best idea for a length of a video or a structure for video in general. It's what's the best at that moment of the channel's history, because at that moment I needed to grow in that area.
Yeah, the variables in any given moment have to be factored in.
I'm going to end this video now, but I'm going to end it with this question. I want to know, and I could probably look it up online myself, but let's figure out if there's a poker tournament at the MGM Grand during the time that I'm going to be there. And it could be, listen, it'll be a TWFP corporate expense.
I
We'll
don't
get a
play
couple.
poker. You know that.
Wow, I mean, man, you've got such a long time to learn. You're an INTP. I'm sure you can get it down in no time. I'm sure by the time I get there, you're going to be the biggest poker shark in town. All right, thanks for watching Talk with Famous People. Talking with famous people.